In a small American town nestled between rolling hills and a winding river, there lived an old man named Walter Bennett. Walter was a retired carpenter, well into his 70s, with hair as white as the first snow of winter and hands roughened by decades of honest work. Walter had spent his life building houses, barns, and fences all over the county, but what people admired most about him wasn't his skill with wood. It was his unwavering kindness and willingness to help anyone who asked, no matter how small the job or how big the favor. Every morning, rain or shine, Walter would sit on the old wooden bench outside his tiny cottage, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug, and wave to the people passing by. Some would stop for a quick chat, others would drop off broken chairs or loose cabinet doors for him to fix. He never took much money for his work, just enough to get by. What was? One summer, the river that split the town in two swelled with heavy rains. The old wooden bridge that connected the east and west sides was declared unsafe and torn down. For the first time in over a century, the people on one side of town could not easily visit their friends, their family, or their jobs on the other side. The nearest alternative was a 20-mile drive around the river. At first, the townsfolk grumbled but waited patiently, trusting the local council to build a new bridge soon. But weeks turned to months. Red tape, funding arguments, and endless meetings left the bridge just a promise on paper. Meanwhile, families were divided, businesses suffered, and an invisible wall split the once close community. Walter watched all this from his bench. He listened to the complaints, the anger, and the helpless sighs. He felt a tug in his heart, one he could not ignore. One morning, Walter stood up from his bench, dusted off his jeans, and announced to his neighbor, "I'm going to build a bridge." His neighbor chuckled kindly. "Walter, you're 73. You can't build a bridge by yourself." Walter smiled, revealing the gap where he'd lost a tooth years ago. "Maybe not by myself." That afternoon, he pulled out his old toolbox and walked to the riverbank. He drove the first stake into the muddy ground where the old bridge once stood. A young boy named Ethan, who often helped Walter with odd jobs, spotted him hammering away. "Mr. Bennett, what are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Building a bridge," Walter grunted, wiping sweat from his brow. "Can I help?" Ethan asked. Walter handed him a spare hammer without a word. By the next morning, a few more curious neighbors came to see what was happening. When they saw the old man and the boy working side by side, they didn't have the heart to just watch. A farmer brought his tractor. A retired engineer brought his measuring tools. A group of teenagers carried planks and nails. What started as one old man's stubborn dream turned into a community mission. Each day, more people showed up. Families, workers, store owners. Some brought tools, some brought food, others donated money for supplies. They worked through blistering heat and sudden summer storms, driven by a sense of purpose they'd forgotten they had. After 6 weeks of sweat, splinters, laughter, and occasional arguments, the bridge stood tall and strong, a simple wooden footbridge wide enough for carts and bicycles. When the final nail was hammered in, the whole town gathered for the first crossing. Walter stood at the entrance, his hands trembling from exhaustion, but his eyes gleamed with pride. The mayor, who had at first doubted the old man's plan, shook Walter's hand with tears in his eyes. As families crossed over, hugging friends they hadn't seen in months, Walter sat down at the foot of the bridge. Ethan sat beside him. "Mr. Bennett," the boy said softly, "why did you do it? You could have just waited like everyone else." Walter looked out at the people streaming across, reunited at last. He placed a calloused hand on Ethan's shoulder and said, "Sometimes, son, if you see something that needs fixing, you don't wait for someone else to do it. You pick up a hammer and start. You'd be surprised who'll come along to help if you just take the first swing." Moral of the story: don't wait for change. Be the bridge that connects people. Small actions, when joined with the hearts and hands of others, can build something that lasts longer than you ever will.